to another video, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to be discussing the Mona Lisa, painted by the very renowned, very famous, the very intellectual Leonardo da Vinci. We all should know about, his work that is already out there. The man was a polymath, obviously very highly intellectual, and I'm sure to say intellectual as opposed to highly educated because we know that he was not educated. He was self-taught, but he obviously had a great pair of eyes for detail. This man's skill for, drawing, even just, rendering simple sketches was, par excellence. He was amazing, right? So insofar as the machines, right, that he drew of things that look like they are helicopters or, machines that look like something built for some sort of flight, right? The guy was obviously, at the vanguard of discovery and technology, and that can be seen his um, through his sketches, right? So that's not what we're really here to talk about, right? We all know how good he is and famous he is, etc., etc., etc. What we are here to talk about is the Mona Lisa. All right. Now, I saw a program. I'm not sure how long ago it aired, but I only saw it recently. Just in browsing stuff and doing some research. There was a gentleman talking about the Mona Lisa and how it's such a famous painting, so many people love it, but nobody has any idea who the painting of the Mona Lisa is. Now, I believe that's a lie. I believe that people who have owned the Mona Lisa know very well who it is. They put on this, air as if, well, it's such a mystery, but I think it's, it's quite obvious to me. So this is a young boy. I'm making sure I say young boy because it was a young boy who was the, I guess, pupil of Leonardo da Vinci. His name is Salai. Now this is him pictured here. You can see the finger up indicating the as above, so below mantra, which is very popular in his depictions. You can also see the erect phallus, so you can tell that he was quite smitten with this young boy. Now, if you look at this, right, that's Salai. Let me show you how he's depicted again. This is also Salai. I believe that picture is called, what is it, the Mona Vana? If I'm not mistaken, I believe that's it. But you can see that is the same young boy that he just depicted with the breasts. Now they are slightly more pronounced. Look at the facial features. Don't look necessarily at the coloration of the picture. Look at this one. This is the so-called John the Baptist, right, with the cross. This, same finger position, as above, so below, right? It's obvious that this is the same person. This was his muse, this young boy, right? So, there's a certain amount of degeneracy going on there. And apparently around that time, it was not necessarily frowned upon. You have to remember that this is the Renaissance period, the rebirth, right? Where people were into lots of these things. And you say, well, how do you know that? Well, the story about Da Vinci and was it the Medici family getting him out of a scrape that he was in is very telling. And I will read it to you. In 1476, just as Leonardo was becoming a master in his own right, probably functioning as a partner to Verrocchio, he was suddenly plagued by scandal. Along with 3 other young men, he was anonymously accused of sodomy, which in Florence was a criminal offense, even though in most cases the authorities looked the other way and the general culture attached little social stigma to homosexuality. See, this is very telling right here, right? This statement about this time period, right? And we see what's happening now with that movement. So nothing new under the sun. Leonardo was 24 years old at the time. The accusations specifically charged him with a homosexual interaction with one Jacopo Saltarelli, a notorious prostitute. Now, this is a male prostitute. The charges were brought in April, and for a time, Leonardo and the defendants were under the watchful eye of Florence's officers of the night, a kind of Renaissance vice squad. However, the charges were dismissed in June due to a lack of witnesses and evidence. It is probable that the Medici family had something to do with this outcome, as another of the defendants was Leonardo de Tornabuoni, and Lorenzo de' Medici's mother had been a Tornabuoni. So he had these connections, right? It's not exactly like nepotism, but it's more like nepotism by association. He's not exactly, Prince Harry. When Prince Harry had his kerfuffle here in the U.S., the royal family was quick to step in and, paint the nice picture of him. But he had connections with this family, which, if you know anything about the Medicis, the Sforzas of Milan, back in that late day, these were so-called black people, right? But they were like, the elites, the Tudors. Just look up the black Tudors, you'll find that kind of information out. It is what it is. There's a lot of people who, after the Renaissance period, people started painting them white because, the serfs had their little serf rebellion, they took over, so they tried to, paint themselves in that narrative, as the ruling class. But in fact, the ruling class, which for the most part was taken out by the Black Plague, was black. And that's a play on words. That's why it's called the Black Plague. Francis the First of France, who was the king, he was so-called black. Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire, Henry VIII of England. There's a bunch of them. Even people who now you associate the name with being Caucasian or from Caucasian heritage. At that time, these names were largely black, right? But you have to do research. You have to go back in history. You have to, look into these things deeply to try to ascertain whether these things are true. And if you don't, then, assumptions are assumptions. Let me give you the Celts, Franks, Lombards, Normans, Anglo-Saxons. All these people are so-called black. Even King James the Sixth and the First, right? The so-called Jacobite king. That man was so-called black, right? They have renditions of him on the original King James Bible in Cambridge University. And if you look at it, the person you're looking at is black. Even they have, different paintings of people in royal garb from that time that are black. It's just one of these things in the history that you don't know about. Not the point, but just the point that this Medici family that got him out of that scrape, those are black folks, right? Back in Milan. So the Medicis, the Sforzas, ruling class elites, aristocrats of sorts back in that time. Leonardo was hobnobbing with these people. A lot of times he was under their patronage, so they allowed him to do his thing because, they were not Christian. This was a highly Catholic time. As I said, Henry VIII of England, Charles V, they was, all under the Holy Roman Empire. So go figure. But knowing this and then comparing this is where I find it hard to believe that people don't see it. Right? Knowing what you know about him from here, that he had these charges against him until this rich family made it go away, right? Then seeing this is a little, I don't know, I don't even want to say pupa, boy toy or whatever, I don't know what they called it back in the day, right? And you look at how he has this young boy depicted, then it is no stretch to say, yes, this was his muse, right? This was the person that he looked to when he was in that, that creative space, right? Because he was so smitten by this young boy. To me, it's obvious. Now, even in the Last Supper, right? This is so-called Christ, who, okay, we're not even going there. Christ did not look like that. You all know that's one of the Borgias. But this here that is called so-called Mary, that is also Salai. That's also Salai. So I think that what it is that the elites of elites know about his predilections, and what makes this famous painting so, you know, big to them is that the fact that it's basically a guy in drag. I think that's what it is. I mean, I don't think it would be too hard to prove, bringing in his sketches and, comparing. You put these things on how you say, some sort of device that measures the facial features and the likeness in the faces. I mean, look at this. Look at the facial features and the likeness. Here they're slightly smoother, in the male was more defined, but see, he already told you that he's picturing him as a woman, right? And this is, what we see in society today. They have men that want to be women. There are men that, transform themselves into these things. So I don't think it's a stretch at all, you know. And as I said, it does not take away from this man's genius. They say a lot of people, geniuses, do have a sort of, sociopathic and psychopathic side to them. That is what gives them that edge. So who knows, especially in this, shark kind of territory and capitalist society that we live in. It's part, it's part for the course. But that's my theory. I think that is where he got his inspiration from this young boy, and that is just a version of this young boy that Da Vinci saw himself with, right? In sort of a perfected way, this was how he saw this person. And there's a this sketch of Da Vinci, I don't think was done by Salai. Once Salai started getting older, and he got to a point where Da Vinci felt like he needed to be replaced, he was replaced. Some other young boy took his spot. His name escapes me right now. I don't really recall it, but that's what Da Vinci was about, man, and that's what I believe Mona Lisa is. Mona Lisa is Salai, instead of being bare-chested or bare-breasted, whichever one you want to say, is in drag, and that's what make it, the most famous painting and so revered by, the people who are very high up and highfalutin and could probably afford to buy it a couple of times over. So there you have it. That's my take. People may not agree with that, but it is what it is. You look at it for yourself. It's deductive reasoning, man. It's you can't be so two-dimensional about things. Sometimes you have to see things from a different perspective. And I think that's what I've brought you. I think that is sufficient evidence to conclude that that's who that is. People say, "Oh, we don't know who it is," and it's beautiful model, and no, you see it nowadays for yourself. There's men in drag shows, right? You have the trans community. So, as I said, nothing new under the sun. That's why this is not a far-fetched idea. Closer to the truth than any other plausible offering. You know what I mean? But anyways, I'll leave that there for now. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and of course share it with everyone you know, whether you like art, whether you like history, whatever the case is. You like doing research, this is one of those things. Share it, let other people get in on the conversation. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.